I had always been cautious about driving at night, especially on desolate highways. The thought of being alone on those pitch-black roads, surrounded by shadows that danced ominously in the glow of my headlights, sent shivers down my spine. But on that fateful night, my friend Mike convinced me to accompany him on a road trip to a remote cabin nestled deep in the woods. He promised it would be an adventure we'd never forget. Little did I know how hauntingly true that would turn out to be. As we set out, the moon hid behind a veil of clouds, casting an eerie ambiance over the landscape. Mike, who was behind the wheel, had a wild glint in his eyes. The dashboard clock showed 10:30 p.m. when we merged onto the desolate highway that would lead us to our destination. "Are you sure this is the right way?" I asked, trying to suppress the rising anxiety within me. "Don't worry, buddy," Mike replied, grinning. "I've been on this route before. It's a shortcut that will save us a lot of time." I wanted to argue, but I trusted Mike and decided to keep my concerns to myself. The road ahead seemed never-ending, and there wasn't a single other car in sight. The only companions we had were the shadows that slipped past the windows like ghosts. Time seemed to lose its meaning as we drove on, the rhythmic hum of the engine becoming hypnotic. Suddenly, a strange feeling washed over me, as if I had crossed into a realm untouched by time. But I shook it off, attributing it to the late hour and my exhaustion. Then, out of nowhere, we spotted a figure standing by the roadside. The person seemed to be hitchhiking, but something about them was off. Their posture was unnaturally rigid, and their clothes were tattered and disheveled. "Should we stop?" I asked hesitantly. Mike, however, had other plans. "Nah, best to keep going. Who knows what kind of trouble that person might be looking for," I agreed, relieved that Mike had made that decision. As we drove past, I caught a glimpse of the figure's face illuminated by our headlights. It was a twisted visage, contorted in pain or sorrow, and it sent a chill down my spine. I tried to shake the image from my mind, but it clung to my thoughts like a malevolent spirit. The further we drove, the more surreal the surroundings became. The trees lining the sides of the road seemed to close in on us, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The darkness enveloped us like a suffocating shroud, and I felt a growing sense of dread gnawing at my sanity. "Mike, are you sure we're on the right path?" I asked again, my voice betraying my rising fear. "I'm positive," he replied, but even his confidence seemed to waver. "It's just a bit longer than I remember." With each passing mile, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were trapped in some nightmarish loop, unable to escape the endless road and the encroaching darkness. My heart pounded in my chest, and the grip on the steering wheel tightened, as if it were holding on to the last remnants of reality. Suddenly, we encountered a fork in the road, and Mike hesitated. There were no signs, no indication of which path to take. "Which way now?" I asked, my voice quivering. Mike closed his eyes for a moment, as if trying to recall something buried deep within his memory. "Left," he said finally. "We go left." Without further discussion, he turned the wheel to the left, and we continued our journey into the unknown. As we progressed, the air inside the car grew thick with tension, and I noticed something unsettling in the rearview mirror. The road we had taken seemed to vanish behind us, swallowed by darkness, leaving no trace of our passage. "We need to turn back," I urged, my panic escalating. But Mike was unresponsive, his gaze fixed on the road ahead, his face a mask of uncertainty. The road stretched on endlessly, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was leading us somewhere malevolent. Our headlights pierced the darkness, revealing glimpses of strange and twisted shapes lurking just beyond our sight. I dared not imagine what horrors they concealed. Then we saw another figure on the side of the road. This time, it was a woman, her long, matted hair obscuring her face. As we approached, she stepped onto the road, blocking our path. Panic surged through me, and I screamed for Mike to stop. But he showed no sign of slowing down. It was as if he didn't see the woman at all. I desperately grabbed the wheel, trying to steer the car away from her. But it was like fighting against an invisible force. "No, no, no," I cried, as we hurtled toward the woman, unable to escape the inevitable collision. Just before impact, she vanished into thin air, leaving us to crash into an empty road. The impact was jarring, and the car screeched to a halt. My head was spinning as I struggled to make sense of what had just happened. But there was no time to contemplate as the air around us seemed to come alive with whispers and sinister laughter. "Mike, we have to get out of here," I urged, my voice trembling. But as we tried to restart the car, it remained stubbornly lifeless. Panic consumed us as the whispers grew louder, taunting and mocking us. Shadows danced along the edges of our vision, and I feared what horrors lurked just beyond the darkness. In the distance, we heard the sound of footsteps approaching. I turned my head and saw the woman we had nearly hit, now standing beside the car, her face still hidden by her hair. Mike and I locked eyes, both of us terrified beyond words. "We need to run," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We stumbled out of the car, and with each step, the air grew heavier, as if we were wading through an ocean of malevolence. The woods around us seemed alive, their gnarled branches reaching out like claws. We ran blindly, guided only by instinct, away from the haunted highway and into the heart of the woods. But the woods offered no respite from the terror that pursued us. The shadows were no longer confined to the road. They surrounded us, closing in like a predator stalking its prey. The trees seemed to twist and bend, their forms contorting into grotesque shapes. As we ran, I felt an overwhelming sense of déjà vu, as if we were trapped in an endless loop. The same trees, the same shadows, the same feeling of impending doom. I couldn't escape the feeling that this place was playing with us, toying with our fears and vulnerabilities. My body screamed for rest, but I dared not stop. We had to find a way out, to break free from the clutches of this nightmarish realm. But as exhaustion threatened to overtake us, I saw something ahead that made my blood run cold. There, standing in the clearing, was a cabin, the very cabin we had set out to find. It stood isolated and menacing, its windows reflecting the moonlight like soulless eyes. My heart sank as I realized that this was the very same cabin we were seeking refuge in, the place where we had hoped to escape the terrors of the night. But now, it seemed like a trap, a dark and twisted mockery of safety. "Mike, we can't go in there," I pleaded, my voice trembling with fear. "It's not safe." But Mike, his eyes wild and desperate, pushed past me and rushed toward the cabin. It was as if he had been drawn to it by some unseen force, compelled to seek shelter no matter the cost. "Wait! Stop!" I yelled after him. But my words fell on deaf ears. I had no choice but to follow him, to stay close and protect each other in this nightmarish place. As we reached the cabin's door, it creaked open on its own, as if welcoming us inside. The interior was suffocatingly dark, the air heavy with an oppressive silence. A dim light flickered in the distance, drawing us deeper into the cabin's embrace. My heart pounded in my chest as we cautiously stepped forward. The flickering light led us down a narrow hallway, its walls adorned with haunting paintings of faceless figures. The images seemed to stare into our souls, their gaze filled with anguish and despair. "Mike, we need to leave," I whispered urgently, but Mike was transfixed, mesmerized by the eerie artwork. A sudden gust of wind blew through the cabin, extinguishing the flickering light. Darkness enveloped us, leaving us blind in a place where we should have felt the presence of malevolence lingering. Then, we heard a soft, mournful whisper, echoing through the darkness, like a lament from a long-forgotten soul. My skin prickled with goosebumps as I strained to identify the source of the sound. "Get out," the voice whispered, chilling my bones. "Get out while you still can." The voice seemed to emanate from every corner of the cabin, an ethereal chorus of warning. It was as if the very walls themselves were trying to protect us from the malevolence that dwelled within. "Please, we need your help," I called out into the darkness, hoping that there was some benevolent presence hidden within this cursed place. But instead of an answer, we heard a guttural growl that echoed like thunder. The cabin seemed to come alive, its walls shifting and groaning as if reacting to our presence. Mike and I exchanged terrified glances, realizing that we had stepped into a realm beyond our understanding. "We have to get out of here," Mike finally cried, his voice frantic and pleading. Without a second thought, we turned and ran back the way we came, fueled by sheer terror. The paintings on the walls now seemed to leer at us, their silent torment amplifying the sense of dread that consumed us. As we burst out of the cabin, the forest outside had transformed. The trees twisted and contorted like living beings, their branches reaching out like gnarled claws to snatch us back into the darkness. The moon above, once obscured by clouds, now hung full and ominous, casting a blood-red glow over the surreal landscape. We ran, unsure of where we were headed, only knowing that we had to escape the clutches of this malevolent place. But no matter how fast we ran, it felt as if we were running in circles, forever trapped within the haunted woods. In the distance, we heard the sound of a mournful wail, a chilling cry that sent shivers down our spines. It was the same voice we had heard inside the cabin, now amplified and echoing through the trees. "Leave this place," the voice cried, a sorrowful plea that tugged at our hearts. "You must leave before it's too late." But the woods seemed to conspire against us, twisting and shifting like a labyrinth that had no escape. The haunting wail pursued us, growing louder and more desperate with each passing moment. "We can't stay here," Mike yelled, his voice laced with desperation. With renewed determination, we pushed through the darkness, refusing to succumb to the malevolence that sought to ensnare us. But as we ran, I felt a strange sensation in the air, a crackling energy that sent sparks through my body. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted around us, illuminating the forest with an ethereal radiance. The ground trembled beneath our feet, as the very fabric of reality seemed to tear apart. I looked at Mike, and in that moment, we shared an unspoken realization. This was not just a haunted highway or a cursed cabin. We had stumbled into a realm beyond our understanding, a place where the laws of the living world held no sway. As the light grew brighter, it revealed the true nature of the haunting highway. It was a gateway, a conduit between our world and the world of spirits, where lost souls wandered in eternal torment. The wailing voice grew louder and more desperate, and I saw glimpses of the tormented souls who roamed this place. They were trapped here, bound by their own regrets and anguish, unable to find peace. "Run!" I shouted to Mike, grabbing his hand as we sprinted toward the blinding light. But just as we were about to pass through the gateway, a cold and skeletal hand reached out from the darkness, grasping at Mike's ankle. He stumbled, and I felt myself being pulled back, unable to break free from the haunting grip. "Go!" Mike shouted, his eyes filled with determination and sacrifice. I hesitated for a moment, torn between saving my friend and escaping the clutches of this malevolent realm. But Mike pushed me forward, and with a surge of adrenaline, I broke free from the spectral grasp and stumbled through the blinding light. As I emerged on the other side, the world around me shifted and morphed, and I found myself back on the desolate highway. The moon had emerged from behind the clouds, casting a cold and unforgiving light over the barren landscape. I turned back, hoping to see Mike emerge from the gateway, but the blinding light had vanished, leaving no trace of the haunting highway or the cursed cabin. Mike was gone, lost to the world of spirits forever. I stood there in the cold, haunted by the memories of that nightmarish journey. The events that transpired were beyond rational explanation, beyond the realm of the living. Since that night, I've avoided driving at night, haunted by the knowledge that there are places in this world where the living and the dead collide. I can still hear the mournful wail echoing in the depths of my mind, a reminder that there are forces beyond our understanding, lurking in the shadows, waiting for unsuspecting souls to stumble into their malevolent embrace. And so, I share this cautionary tale as a warning to all who venture out on desolate highways at night. Beware the haunted highways, for they lead to a realm of darkness and despair, where lost souls roam and malevolence lies in wait. Once you step onto that cursed path, there may be no escape, and you'll find yourself forever haunted by the terrors of the night.